I am Joe Allen. I chose the topic of contact with a native speaker. I chose that because I currently have a Cuban girlfriend, so that made that pretty obvious. I guess next to answer the next question, how was the experience overall? To be honest, a lot of these things I was already familiar with. I mean, this is not my first rodeo as far as being in contact with some form of Latin culture. I lived in Texas for a while. I'm pretty familiar with everything she was talking about. But if I was to take you there, just a brief overall summary, I'd say as far as between the traditional utilitarian, they definitely fall more on the traditional side as far as how they greet each other, their personal space and things like that. Whereas Americans are not as physically warm with each other. When we're polite, but we're not as touchy. For them, it's normal to kiss each other on the cheek, things like that. You know, she mentioned in one of the questions I asked her about personal space. She said basically there's no such thing as personal space between Cubans. I found that interesting, but again, these are things I'm mostly familiar with. I'm a little older than the average student, I guess. So I've been around the block a few times. I would say talking to her is, like I said earlier, there's nothing really that will change my perspective because I'm already very familiar with it. I'm very well traveled, as I said, and maybe some of the reasons they're kind of like the way they are. She wrote that in Cuba, she grew up under the Castro regime, by the way. Got to the United States, I think about '95. But yeah, she said public transportation it's everybody's packed in. They're all used to just being really close to each other anyway. And another thing that stood out that we talked about was like as far as politeness and what you bring up around company, what you don't. Politics is taboo, and there's a good reason for that because they don't have freedom of speech down there. She told me, and things can go sideways if you start talking about the government.